Captain Jack Hartman leaned back in his chair, staring at the holographic star map projected above the command console. His ship, the Endeavor, glided through the vast expanse of space on a routine patrol mission. The sector was known for being quiet, almost too quiet. "Captain, we're picking up a faint distress signal," said Lieutenant Simon Drake, the ship's communications officer. He was a stocky man with a thick beard and a deep voice that matched his burly appearance. Jack sat up straight. "Can you pinpoint the source?" Simon tapped a few keys, bringing up a detailed scan of the surrounding area. "It's coming from a few light years ahead. Looks like an uncharted area." "Set a course," Jack ordered. "Let's see what's out there." The Endeavor's engines roared to life, and the ship surged forward. Jack glanced around the bridge, his eyes landing on each of his crew members. They were a tight-knit team, having faced numerous challenges together. Beside Simon sat First Officer Michael Stevens, a tall, lean man with a calculating mind and a knack for strategy. At the navigation console was Ensign Maria Lopez, whose deft hands guided the ship with precision. "ETA?" Jack asked. 10 minutes, Maria replied, her fingers dancing over the controls. As they approached the source of the signal, a cluster of massive ships appeared on the view screen. They were ancient, their hulls pockmarked with the scars of time and battle. Jack's eyes widened. "Good God, what are those?" Simon muttered. "Looks like we've stumbled upon an old fleet," Michael observed. "But who did they belong to?" Jack nodded. "We're about to find out. Maria, bring us in closer. Simon, open a channel. Let's see if we can establish contact." The crew watched in silence as the Endeavor drifted closer to the derelict ships. Simon worked the controls, trying to establish a link. "No response," he said after a few moments. "The systems are either offline or too damaged to communicate." Jack stood up. "Prepare a boarding party. We're going over there." A few minutes later, Jack, Michael, and a team of Marines donned their EVA suits and stepped into the airlock. The doors hissed shut behind them, and they felt the familiar jolt as the docking tube extended and locked onto the nearest ship. "Stay sharp," Jack said, his voice crackling over the suit's intercom. "We don't know what we'll find in there." The airlock opened, revealing the dimly lit interior of the alien ship. The team moved cautiously, their lights cutting through the darkness. The corridors were vast, designed for beings much taller and broader than humans. "Looks like this place has been abandoned for a long time," Michael commented, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Jack nodded. "Spread out and look for anything useful. Simon, keep an open channel. Report anything unusual." The team dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. Jack and Michael moved together, their lights sweeping over the walls and floors. They entered what appeared to be a control room, filled with consoles and screens, all dark and silent. "Let's see if we can get some power to these systems," Jack said, approaching one of the consoles. Michael examined the control panels, his fingers tracing the alien symbols. "This is some advanced tech. If we can figure out how to turn it on, it could be a goldmine." Jack found a panel that seemed to control the ship's power grid. He opened it, revealing a maze of wires and circuits. "I'm no engineer, but let's give it a shot." Working together, they reconnected a few wires and flipped a switch. The room hummed to life, lights flickering on, and screens glowing with alien text and diagrams. "Good work," Michael said, impressed. Jack grinned. "Let's see what secrets you've been hiding." They began scanning through the data, their eyes widening as they uncovered detailed logs and schematics. "These ships belong to an advanced alien race," Jack muttered. "But what happened to them?" As they delved deeper, they found references to a devastating war with another alien species. The logs spoke of desperate battles and last stands, but one entry caught Jack's eye. "Michael, look at this," he said, pointing to a section of text. Michael leaned in. "It mentions a powerful weapon, something capable of turning the tide of any conflict." Jack frowned. "We need to get this information back to the Endeavor. Simon, can you hear me?" "Loud and clear, Captain." Simon's voice crackled through the intercom. "Prepare to download everything we've found. This could change everything." As they worked, a sudden noise echoed through the corridor. Jack and Michael turned, their lights slicing through the darkness. "What was that?" Michael whispered. "Stay alert," Jack said, his hand moving to the sidearm at his waist. "It might not be as abandoned as we thought." They moved cautiously towards the source of the sound, their hearts pounding. Rounding a corner, they found an alien stasis pod, its surface covered in frost. The noise had come from the pod's activation sequence. "Looks like we're not alone," Jack muttered, his eyes fixed on the pod. As they watched, the pod slowly opened, revealing a figure inside. It was a Zephyrin, a tall, elegant being with features that were both alien and eerily beautiful. The figure stepped out, blinking in the light, and spoke in a language they couldn't understand. "Simon, we need a translator down here," Jack said into the intercom. "On it, Captain," Simon replied. Michael kept his eyes on the Zephyrin. "Do you think they're friendly?" Jack shrugged. "Only one way to find out. Let's hope they don't see us as a threat." As the translator arrived, they began to communicate with the alien, who introduced herself as Lyra. She explained that she was the last surviving member of her crew, placed in stasis to preserve her life. "We were fleeing a war," she said through the translator. "Our enemies, the Kakar, were relentless. We hoped to find refuge, but our ships were damaged and we had to abandon them." Jack nodded, absorbing the information. "We've discovered logs about a powerful weapon. Do you know anything about it?" Lyra's eyes widened. "Yes, it was our last hope, a weapon of immense power, but it's dangerous and activating it requires great caution." Michael looked at Jack. "We need to understand this technology if we're to defend ourselves. Lyra, will you help us?" Lyra nodded. "I will, but we must be careful. The Kakar are ruthless, and if they find out we have the weapon, they will stop at nothing to destroy us." Jack extended a hand. "Then we work together. Let's get back to the Endeavor and figure this out." As they made their way back to the ship, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their discovery was just the beginning. The abandoned fleet held many secrets, and with Lyra's help, they might just have a chance to unlock them. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was about to change, and they were at the heart of it all. Back on the Endeavor, the crew gathered in the briefing room, their faces reflecting a mix of excitement and apprehension. Jack stood at the front, Lyra by his side, as they prepared to unveil the secrets of the Ghost Fleet. "Listen up, everyone," Jack said, his voice steady. "What we've found out there is beyond anything we could have imagined. We're standing on the brink of something extraordinary, and it's going to take all of us to see it through. Let's get to work." With that, the team dispersed, each member ready to face the challenges ahead. The discovery of the Ghost Fleet had set them on a new path, one filled with danger and opportunity. And together, they would navigate the uncharted territory, forging a future for humanity among the stars. The atmosphere on the Endeavor was electric as the crew processed the enormity of their discovery. Captain Jack Hartman stood in the briefing room, surrounded by his key officers, including Michael Stevens and Lyra, the newly awakened Zephyrin. The holographic display showed the ancient fleet, with detailed schematics and data streaming across the screen. "All right, people," Jack began. "We've got a lot to unpack here. Lyra, can you start by telling us more about your people and this fleet?" Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "The Zephyrin were once a prosperous and technologically advanced civilization. We thrived for millennia until we encountered the Kakar. They are a brutal species, relentless in their quest for conquest. This fleet was our last hope, a final attempt to escape and regroup." Michael leaned in, intrigued. "And this powerful weapon we found references to, what is it exactly?" Lyra hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The weapon is called the Aegis. It's not just a weapon, it's a system designed to harness and amplify energy on a massive scale. It can protect or destroy depending on how it's used, but it requires a deep understanding of Zephyrin technology to operate." Jack nodded. "And you're willing to help us learn how to use it?" Lyra's eyes met his, full of determination. "Yes, but we must proceed with caution. The Aegis is incredibly powerful. Misuse could be catastrophic." Simon Drake, who had been monitoring communications, interrupted. "Captain, we've got a secure channel open to Earth Command. They're waiting for your report." Jack sighed, knowing this conversation could change everything. "Patch them through." A holographic image of Admiral Taylor, a stern-faced woman with silver hair, flickered to life. "Captain Hartman, what's your status?" "Admiral, we've made an extraordinary discovery," Jack began, summarizing the encounter with the Zephyrin fleet and the information Lyra had provided. Admiral Taylor listened intently, her expression unreadable. "This is indeed significant. The potential of this technology, it could give us an edge against any threat. We need to secure and study those ships immediately." Jack exchanged a glance with Michael. "Understood, Admiral. We're working on accessing the data and integrating what we can with our systems. Lyra has agreed to assist us." The Admiral's gaze shifted to Lyra. We appreciate your cooperation. Know that Earth will ensure your safety in exchange for your help." Lyra nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. I hope our alliance can bring peace and stability." After the transmission ended, Jack addressed his crew. "We've got our orders. Michael, lead a team to start transferring data from the fleet's mainframe. Simon, coordinate with Earth Command and keep an eye on communications. We can't afford any surprises." Michael gathered his team, including Maria Lopez and a few engineers, and headed back to the alien ship. The corridors felt less foreboding now, though the sense of ancient history still hung heavily in the air. "Let's focus on the main control center," Michael said as they reached the heart of the ship. "Lyra, can you guide us?" Lyra nodded, activating a holographic map. This way, the central core should contain the primary databanks. As they navigated the maze of corridors, Maria noticed something peculiar. "Look at these markings. They seem to tell a story." Lyra glanced at the wall carvings. "They depict the history of the Zephyrin, our rise and our fall. This was a ship of great importance, possibly a flagship." They reached the control center, a vast room filled with alien technology. Michael and his team set to work, connecting their devices to the mainframe. Data began to flow, ancient logs and schematics filling their screens. "Captain, we're in," Michael reported over the comm. "We've got access to a treasure trove of information." "Excellent," Jack's voice crackled back. "Prioritize anything related to the Aegis and defensive systems. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Hours passed as they sifted through the data. Lyra provided critical insights, her knowledge of Zephyrin technology proving invaluable. They discovered detailed blueprints for the Aegis, descriptions of its energy source, and protocols for its use. "This is incredible," Maria said, eyes wide as she examined a holographic projection of the Aegis. "If we can integrate this with our systems," Michael nodded, "it could change the balance of power in the galaxy." Suddenly, Simon's voice broke through the comm. "Captain, we've got company. Unidentified ships entering the sector." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Kakar? Possibly. They're not responding to hails and are moving in fast." "Everyone back to the Endeavor now," Jack ordered. The team hurriedly gathered their equipment and made their way back to the ship. As they boarded, the tension was palpable. The view screen showed several ships approaching, their designs unfamiliar and menacing. "Raise shields," Jack commanded. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The alien ships opened fire and the Endeavor shuddered under the impact. Jack's crew worked with practiced efficiency, returning fire and maneuvering the ship to minimize damage. "These aren't Kakar," Michael said, analyzing the enemy ship's configuration. "There's something else." Lyra's eyes widened in recognition. "They're scavengers. They prey on derelict ships, looking for advanced technology to sell or use." Jack gritted his teeth. "They picked the wrong day to mess with us. Simon, get me a firing solution on their lead ship." The Endeavor's weapons locked onto the lead scavenger ship, and a barrage of energy bolts ripped through its hull. The ship exploded, sending debris flying. "Nice shot," Maria said, her hands steady on the controls. The remaining scavenger ships hesitated, then broke off their attack, retreating into the darkness of space. "That's right, run," Jack muttered. "But they'll be back, and they'll bring friends." He turned to Lyra. "We need to get the Aegis operational and integrate as much of your technology as we can. If the scavengers know about this fleet, others will too." Lyra nodded. "Agreed. Let's get to work. We have a lot to do and not much time." As the crew settled back into their tasks, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The secrets of the Zephyrin fleet held the key to their survival, but unlocking them would require every ounce of their ingenuity and courage. The Ghost Fleet had given them a glimpse into a past filled with wonders and dangers. Now, it was up to Jack and his crew to navigate this new reality, forging a path that could either lead to humanity's greatest triumph or its ultimate downfall. And with Lyra's help, they might just stand a chance. Captain Jack Hartman paced the bridge of the Endeavor, the view screens showing the ghostly visages of the ancient Zephyrin fleet. The recent skirmish with the scavenger ships had left the crew on high alert, and the sense of urgency was palpable. "Lyra, how close are we to getting the Aegis operational?" Jack asked, his voice a mix of concern and impatience. Lyra, standing by a console with several holographic displays of complex alien circuitry, glanced towards Jack. "We are making progress, but understanding the full scope of this system is challenging. The Aegis was designed to be operated by minds trained in Zephyrin engineering from a young age." Jack nodded, his brow furrowed. We don't have that kind of time. What can we do to speed up the process? Michael, who had been coordinating with the engineering teams, joined the conversation. We could try a direct data transfer from the ship's AI to our systems. It might give us a crash course in Zephyrin tech. Lyra considered this for a moment. It's risky. The AI's protocols aren't designed for human interfaces. There could be, unpredictable consequences. Unpredictable is better than defenseless, Jack replied firmly. Do it. Let's get that AI online and see what we can learn. Minutes later, the team assembled in the main control room of the Zephyrin flagship. The air was thick with anticipation as Lyra and the engineering crew initiated the interface process with the ancient AI, known as Eon. As the system powered up, a holographic entity materialized before them. It had an ethereal, fluid appearance, its form shimmering with light. I am Eon, it spoke in a calm, resonant voice. I have been reactivated to assist. Please state your directives. Jack stepped forward. Eon, we need your help to understand and operate the Aegis defense system. Our goal is to protect ourselves against imminent threats. Eon's form pulsed slightly. Understood. I will assist. However, be advised that full comprehension and integration of Zephyrin technology by non-Zephyrin entities is unprecedented. Lyra interjected. Eon, they are capable and have shown great respect for our technology. We must trust them. Very well, Eon responded. Initiating data transfer. Lights flickered and screens flashed as streams of data flowed into the Endeavor's systems. The crew watched, mesmerized and slightly overwhelmed by the flood of alien knowledge. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Simon monitored the sector. Captain, you need to see this. We're picking up a large inbound fleet on long-range scanners. Jack rushed back to the bridge, his heart sinking as he viewed the tactical display. Can we identify them? They're not scavengers, Simon reported, his voice tense. It looks like a Kakar battle group. They must have picked up the activity from the scavenger skirmish. Jack clenched his fists. How long until they're within firing range? Less than an hour, Simon estimated. Jack turned to Michael. Get everyone prepared for a possible confrontation. I'll be coordinating with Lyra and Eon. We need that Aegis up now more than ever. Back in the control room, the data transfer was completing. Eon's holographic form stabilized, and it spoke. The integration has begun, but it will take time for full operational capability. We may not have time, Jack said urgently. Can we deploy any defensive measures immediately? Eon paused, its form shimmering. There is a protocol that might be used in an emergency. It will provide temporary shielding, but at a great energy cost. Do it, Jack ordered. Anything to buy us more time. As Eon activated the protocol, a deep hum vibrated through the ship, and a visible energy field enveloped the Zephyrin fleet. Outside, the void of space shimmered as the shield came online, just as the first Kakar ships dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charging. Shield is holding, but it won't last against sustained fire, Lyra warned, watching the energy readings spike. On the bridge, Jack watched the advancing Kakar fleet. All hands, prepare for combat, but hold your fire. Let's see if the shield holds them off. The first volleys from the Kakar ships struck the shield, causing ripples of light to cascade across its surface. Inside, the crew held their breath, watching as each impact tested the strength of the Zephyrin technology. After several tense minutes, the bombardment ceased. The Kakar fleet, surprised and possibly assessing their unexpected resistance, held back. Jack exhaled slowly. Eon, Lyra, great work. Let's keep pushing on the Aegis. We've bought ourselves some time, but that won't last forever. Back in the control room, Eon and Lyra continued to work feverishly, navigating the complex systems. We are close, Eon assured. Soon, the Aegis will be fully operational. Jack nodded, turning to relay the message to his crew. Stay sharp, everyone. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're getting closer. As the Kakar fleet lingered at the edge of the shield, Jack knew the true test was still to come. The fate of the Endeavor and its crew hung in the balance, dependent on an ancient alien technology and the fragile alliance they had formed with Lyra and Eon. In the deep recesses of space, a new chapter in human resilience was being written, one fraught with danger but also filled with the promise of a new dawn. In the dimly lit briefing room aboard the Endeavor, tension hung thick in the air. The temporary shield generated by the Aegis system had bought them precious time, but it wouldn't last forever. Captain Jack Hartman stood at the front, reviewing the tactical display with his crew gathered around. The Kakar are regrouping, Simon reported. pointing at the screen where red blips indicated the enemy fleet's movements. It looks like they're preparing for another assault. Jack turned to Lyra and Eon, who had become integral to their defense efforts. Lyra, Eon, how long until the Aegis is fully operational? Eon's holographic form flickered slightly. The integration process is complex. We estimate another hour before full operational capability is achieved. We might not have an hour, Michael interjected, his voice tense. If they hit us before we're ready, it could be over. Jack nodded grimly. We need to prepare for the worst. Michael, coordinate with the engineering team. Make sure all systems are as ready as they can be. Simon, keep monitoring their communications. We need to know if they change tactics. As the crew set to work, Jack pulled Lyra aside. Lyra, your knowledge has been invaluable. Is there anything else in your technology that can help us hold them off? Lyra's expression was thoughtful. There is one more thing. The Zephyrin developed a series of decoy drones capable of emitting signals to mimic fleet movements. It could confuse the Kakar sensors and buy us more time. That sounds promising, Jack said, a glint of hope in his eyes. Let's deploy them immediately. Lyra coordinated with the engineering team to launch the decoy drones. Within minutes, the small devices were drifting towards the Kakar fleet, sending out signals that mimicked the signatures of larger ships. On the bridge, the crew watched as the Kakar fleet reacted to the sudden appearance of additional targets. It's working, Maria exclaimed. They're diverting some of their forces to intercept the decoys. Jack allowed himself a brief smile. Good job, everyone. Let's use this opportunity to strengthen our position. Meanwhile, the Endeavor's crew worked feverishly to reinforce the ship's defenses and integrate more of the Zephyrin technology. The engineering bay was a hive of activity, with teams led by Michael and Maria adapting alien systems for human use. As they worked, an unexpected transmission came through. Simon, who had been monitoring the communications, signaled Jack urgently. Captain, you need to see this. Jack approached the console where a live feed showed a group of Kakar ships breaking off from the main fleet. What are they doing? They've captured some of our decoy drones, Simon explained. It seems they've realized they were tricked. Jack's jaw tightened. Prepare for an immediate assault. They won't be happy about being fooled. As predicted, the Kakar fleet launched a furious barrage towards the Endeavor. The ship shuddered under the impact of heavy weapons fire. Alarms blared, and the crew was thrown into a frantic battle to maintain the integrity of their shields. Shield strength is down to 40%, one of the engineers shouted over the din. Jack gripped the console, staring out at the barrage of incoming fire. Hold it together, everyone, just a bit longer. Lyra, observing the dire situation, turned to Eon. Can we initiate any of the Aegis's more defensive protocols yet? Eon's interface blinked rapidly. Activating emergency defensive sequence. Stand by. A wave of energy pulsed from the Endeavor, strengthening the shields just as another volley hit. The ship held firm, much to the crew's relief. The Aegis is starting to come online, Lyra announced, her voice filled with a mix of relief and determination. Jack looked around at his battle-weary crew. This is it. Let's turn the tables. With the Aegis slowly coming to life, they had a fighting chance. Jack coordinated with his officers to mount a counterattack. Using the enhanced capabilities provided by the Zephyrin technology, they targeted the Kakar's lead ships. Maria, at the helm, maneuvered the Endeavor with newfound agility, dodging incoming fire. We're in position, she confirmed. Now, Jack commanded. The Endeavor unleashed a powerful salvo, enhanced by the Aegis. The beams of energy struck the Kakar ships with devastating accuracy, causing severe damage to their hulls. We've got them on the back foot, Michael exclaimed, watching as the enemy fleet faltered. Encouraged by their success, Jack pushed his crew further. Keep the pressure on. We can win this. As the battle raged, the Endeavor and its crew fought with a fierce determination, bolstered by their advanced alien technology. The Kakar, overwhelmed by the unexpected resilience and firepower of the human ship, began to retreat. Jack watched as the enemy ships withdrew, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. They had survived the onslaught, thanks to the courage of his crew and their unlikely allies. Lyra, Eon, thank you, Jack said, turning to the hologram and the Zephyrin. We couldn't have done this without you. Lyra nodded, her expression solemn. This is only the beginning, Captain. The Kakar will regroup, but for now, we have shown them that we are not to be underestimated. As the crew of the Endeavor set about repairing and strengthening their ship, they knew the war was far from over. But they had achieved a significant victory, one that promised a new chapter in human capabilities and interstellar relations. With the Zephyrin technology and their new allies at their side, they faced the future with renewed confidence and resolve. The respite provided by their recent victory was short-lived. Captain Jack Hartman, still aboard the Endeavour and now deeply entrenched in Zephyrin technology, knew the Kakar would not retreat indefinitely. Their brief victory had only delayed the inevitable. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up multiple warp signatures," reported Ensign Lopez, her tone laced with urgency. "It's a much larger fleet than we've encountered before." Jack's expression hardened as he stood from the captain's chair, approaching the main view screen which displayed the incoming threat. "Show me." The screen flickered to life, revealing a daunting array of Kakar warships emerging from warp, their dark silhouettes bristling with weaponry. Simon, still manning his communications console, added, "They're not wasting any time, sir. Looks like a full-scale invasion force." Jack nodded, turning to address his crew. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare for an extended engagement. This isn't a skirmish, it's a fight for survival." As the crew scrambled to their positions, Jack pulled Lyra aside. "Is the Aegis fully operational now? We're going to need every advantage we can muster." Lyra, her face marked by concern yet steadied by resolve, replied, "The Aegis is functional, but harnessing its full capabilities safely is still beyond our current grasp. I can activate its primary defense matrix, which should bolster our shields significantly." "Do it," Jack ordered without hesitation, "and get Eon to coordinate the ship's defenses. We need to be a fortress." Lyra nodded and moved swiftly to execute the commands, her fingers dancing across the Zephyrin interfaces with a fluency that spoke of her deep connection to her people's technology. Meanwhile, Michael rallied the crew in the weapons control room, distributing the Zephyrin-enhanced arms and overseeing the tactical deployment of their newfound capabilities. "Remember, aim for their propulsion systems. If we can cripple their mobility, we can control the engagement." Back on the bridge, Maria guided the Endeavour deftly between the volley of plasma fires and laser blasts that began to pepper space around them. "Evasive maneuvers are holding, but this is unlike any dogfight we've trained for," she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. Jack watched the battle unfold, his strategic mind calculating every possible outcome. "Lyra, status on that defense matrix?" "It's now active," Lyra confirmed. "Our shield strength has doubled, but I'm not sure how long it will hold against this kind of firepower." As the Kakar fleet bore down, a sudden barrage rocked the Endeavour. The ship's lights dimmed momentarily before stabilizing. Jack clenched his fists, feeling the weight of command heavier than ever. "Simon, open a channel to the fleet. Let's see if they're willing to talk." Simon hesitated, knowing the Kakar's reputation for ruthlessness, but complied. "Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Jack Hartman of the Terran Alliance," Jack began, his voice resolute. "We have no quarrel with you, but we will defend ourselves." The response was a guttural voice that filled the bridge, cold and menacing. "Your defenses are irrelevant, human. You stand in the way of the Kakar Dominion. Surrender your fleet or be obliterated." Jack's reply was cut short by another salvo from the Kakar ships, forcing Maria to execute a series of sharp, jarring maneuvers. "No surrender," Jack muttered, turning off the communication. "We fight on our terms." The battle raged for hours, with both sides exchanging heavy fire. The Endeavour, fortified by the Aegis, managed to withstand the onslaught, while its return fire took a toll on the Kakar vanguard. As the tide of battle slowly began to turn, Eon's voice emerged over the comm system, calm yet urgent. "Captain, I have identified a weak point in their formation. Concentrating fire on their flagship could disrupt their command structure." Jack seized on the opportunity. "Target their flagship. All weapons, focus fire." The crew coordinated a massive volley, channeling the full might of the Aegis-enhanced weaponry. The Kakar flagship, caught off guard by the intensity of the attack, suffered catastrophic damage, its shields failing as explosions tore through its hull. Seeing their flagship falter, the morale of the Kakar fleet wavered. Sensing the shift, Jack pressed the advantage. "Push forward. Break their lines." With renewed vigor, the Endeavour and its supporting ships surged ahead, breaking through the Kakar formation and sowing chaos in their ranks. The invaders, disoriented and leaderless, began to retreat, their invasion thwarted for the moment. As the Kakar ships warped away, the crew of the Endeavour let out a collective sigh of relief, their cheers filling the bridge. Jack allowed himself a moment of pride but remained acutely aware of the cost. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. "Good work, everyone," Jack announced, his gaze sweeping over his crew. "Let's get to repairs and be ready for their next move. This fight isn't over, but today we've shown them what we're made of. Let's be sure we can do it again." After the initial triumph, Captain Jack Hartman and his crew aboard the Endeavour were not only repairing their ship, but preparing for the inevitable next encounter with the Kakar. The bridge was a hive of activity, where tactical plots and repair status reports intersected, each update critical to their survival. Jack stood overlooking the main console alongside Lyra and his first officer, Michael. "The Kakar won't take long to counterattack," Jack stated, his voice firm with resolve. "We need to capitalize on our current advantage." Lyra, who had been working closely with Eon to enhance the Aegis system further, chimed in. "The Aegis can be more effective, but we need to access a deeper layer of its core functions. It was designed for more than just defense." Michael leaned forward, interest piqued. "What are you suggesting?" "There's a latent feature within the Aegis, a pulse wave that can disable electronic systems temporarily without causing permanent damage," Lyra explained. "It could cripple the Kakar fleet if deployed correctly." Jack considered this new information. "How do we activate it?" Eon, materializing beside them, provided the technical details. "Activating the pulse wave requires precise calibration of the Aegis's energy matrix. It is risky as it draws heavily on the ship's power reserves. We'll need to be in optimal position to use it effectively," Michael added, looking over the star map. "There's a nebula nearby, the Helix Nebula. Its ionic disturbances could conceal our approach, giving us the element of surprise." Jack nodded decisively. "Set course for the Helix Nebula. Prepare all systems for a potential confrontation. Simon, keep communications open, but discreet. We need to know if there are any changes in the Kakar movements." As the Endeavour stealthily maneuvered towards the nebula, the crew braced for what could be their most daring operation yet. Meanwhile, Maria, the ship's pilot, expertly navigated the turbulent space, her hands steady despite the stakes. "Entering the nebula now," Maria announced, her voice steady. Visibility outside the ship diminished as swirling gases and colorful ionic clouds enveloped the Endeavour. The nebula's natural electromagnetic anomalies provided the perfect cover, masking their energy signature from the Kakar sensors. Lyra and Eon worked closely, fine-tuning the Aegis system to harness the ship's power for the pulse wave. "We're almost ready," Lyra said, her focus intense. "The pulse wave will be ready to deploy on your command, Captain." Jack watched the tactical display, waiting for the opportune moment. "Hold steady. Now, Maria, take us closer." Under his command, Maria piloted the ship to a vantage point just within range of the unsuspecting Kakar fleet. The enemy ships, still regrouping from their previous loss, were unaware of the looming threat. "Now, Lyra," Jack ordered. With a nod, Lyra initiated the pulse wave. A deep hum vibrated through the Endeavour as the ship channeled all available power into the Aegis system. Then, a surge of energy pulsed outward, invisible but potent. The effect was immediate. The Kakar ships, caught in the wave, faltered. Their systems flickered and went dark, leaving them adrift and defenseless. "We've got them!" Michael exclaimed, his voice a mix of relief and triumph. "Good work, team," Jack said, allowing a rare smile to cross his features. "Let's make sure they can't recover. Disable their main ships permanently." As the Endeavour moved in to secure its advantage, Simon relayed an urgent update. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's weak, but it's definitely there." Jack frowned, switching to the communication panel. On screen, the signal was from a group of human outposts in a neighboring system under attack by another faction of the Kakar. The victory here was crucial, but it was clear the war was far from over. "Plot a course to the outposts," Jack decided swiftly. "We have to help them. Prepare the ship for travel." As the Endeavour left the disabled Kakar ships behind, heading towards the new threat, the crew was buoyed by their success, but aware of the continuous challenges ahead. Each victory was a step towards ending the threat of the Kakar, but the path to peace was still fraught with danger. Jack stood firm at the helm, his resolve as strong as ever. "Let's move quickly, crew. We've turned the tide today, but there's more to do. We're not just fighting for survival now, we're fighting to end this war." As the Endeavour raced through space towards the besieged human outposts, Captain Jack Hartman reviewed the ship's battle readiness. The recent victories had lifted the spirits of his crew, but the reality of their situation was stark. They were deep in enemy territory, and the Kakar were relentless. In the strategy room, Jack convened a meeting with his senior staff, including Lyra and Eon. Maps of the sector and projections of Kakar fleet movements flickered on the screens around them. Reports indicate that the Kakar are massing for a counterattack near the Orion sector, Michael reported, his eyes scanning the data streams. Our victory with the Aegis pulse wave has pushed them, but they're adapting quickly. Lyra added, the Aegis system is holding up, but deploying the pulse wave again so soon could destabilize its core. We risk permanent damage to the system. Jack rubbed his chin thoughtfully. We need another option. Eon, is there any other Zephyrin technology we haven't utilized yet? Eon's holographic form flickered as it accessed deep memory banks. There is one possibility, a Zephyrin artifact known as the Celestial Lance. It is not a weapon in the traditional sense, but a device capable of manipulating gravitational fields to create a singularity. The room fell silent as they processed the implications. Finally, Jack broke the silence. A singularity? That sounds like it could tear a fleet apart. Where is this Celestial Lance? It was last recorded on the Zephyrin Research Station in the Maelstrom Nebula, Eon answered. However, the station was abandoned centuries ago. The Lance's status is unknown. We have to assume it's still there and operational, Jack decided with a determined look. Set a course for the Maelstrom Nebula. If we can secure the Celestial Lance, we might be able to end this conflict once and for all. As the Endeavor changed course, tension mounted among the crew. The Maelstrom Nebula was notorious for its volatile storms and treacherous navigation. Maria, at the helm, steadied herself for the challenging flight ahead. Upon entering the nebula, the Endeavor was immediately buffeted by cosmic winds and electromagnetic turbulence. Holding course is going to be tricky, Maria announced through gritted teeth, maneuvering the ship with expert precision. Meanwhile, Lyra and Eon coordinated to triangulate the location of the research station. After tense hours navigating through the nebula, the derelict station loomed ahead, its structure eerily silent against the backdrop of swirling gases. Jack led a team including Lyra, Michael, and a security detail to board the station. Inside, they found it abandoned, but intact. They made their way to the central lab, where the Celestial Lance was supposed to be housed. The lab was a vault of ancient technology, filled with devices and instruments whose purposes were mostly lost to time. In the center of the room, secured in a containment field, was the Celestial Lance, a sleek, cylindrical device, humming with latent power. Is it operational? Jack asked, eyeing the device warily. Lyra examined the control panels, her fingers moving deftly over the alien symbols. It appears to be in standby mode. I can activate it, but controlling it will require precise manipulation. Do it, Jack instructed, watching as Lyra worked to awaken the ancient technology. After several tense minutes, the Celestial Lance glowed brightly, its power palpable even through the containment field. It's ready, Lyra confirmed, looking back at Jack with a mixture of awe and fear. Back on the bridge, as they prepared to deploy the Celestial Lance against the Kakar, Simon received a transmission. Captain, the Kakar are approaching. They've found us. Prepare to deploy the Lance, Jack ordered, his voice steady. This is it. As the Kakar fleet advanced, the Endeavor unleashed the power of the Celestial Lance. Directed by Lyra's skilled hands, the device emitted a pulse that warped space around the Kakar ships, creating a localized singularity. The effect was devastating. The Kakar ships were drawn into the singularity, crushed by the immense gravitational forces. In moments, the heart of the Kakar fleet was obliterated, leaving only scattered remnants. Silence fell over the bridge of the Endeavor as the crew absorbed the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Jack looked around at his crew, their faces a mix of relief and somber realization at the destructive power they had unleashed. We've done it, Jack finally said, his voice low. Let's make sure this weapon is never needed again. As the Endeavor set a course back to Earth, the crew was left to contemplate the future. They had secured a significant victory, potentially ending the Kakar threat. But at what cost? The Celestial Lance was a reminder of the dangerous powers contained within the universe, and now humanity was its keeper. The Endeavor glided through the silence of space, its crew both exhausted and exhilarated. The victory over the Kakar was monumental, but the weapon they had used, the Celestial Lance, weighed heavily on their minds. Captain Jack Hartman stared out into the vastness of space from the observation deck, contemplating the future. Lyra joined him, her expression somber. The power of the celestial lance. It's unlike anything we imagined. It's been deactivated and secured, but the knowledge of such a weapon exists. Jack nodded, turning to face her. Your people created it for a reason, Lyra. But today we've seen its power and the responsibility that comes with it. We must ensure it is used wisely, or not at all, Lyra replied. Perhaps it should be dismantled to prevent such devastation from ever happening again. Jack considered this. Perhaps. But for now, let's focus on rebuilding and helping those affected by the Kakar. We have a chance to forge a new path for humanity and your people. Back on Earth, the Endeavor's return was met with celebrations. Humanity had not only survived an existential threat, but had emerged stronger. However, in the halls of power, the discussions were more sober. Jack, along with Lyra, attended debriefings with global leaders, advocating for cautious stewardship of the new technologies. In a high-security conference room, world leaders and scientific advisors listened intently as Jack presented his report. The celestial lance must be a tool of last resort, he insisted. We've seen what it can do. We must agree to a set of protocols for its use, guarded by an international body. The debate that followed was intense. Some argued for the weapon's dismantlement, others for its development for defensive purposes only. Throughout it all, Jack and Lyra stood firm on the need for regulation and oversight. Finally, a consensus was reached. The Celestial Lance would be deactivated and placed under the control of a newly formed International Space Defense Authority, which would include representatives from Earth and Lyra's people, ensuring that no single nation could wield its power unilaterally. With the political battles settled, Jack took a moment to reflect on the broader implications of their journey. They had encountered and adapted alien technology, fought a desperate battle for survival, and faced moral quandaries that tested their very humanity. At a ceremony commemorating the end of the conflict, Jack spoke to a crowd gathered at the United Nations headquarters. Today marks a new beginning, he began, his voice resonant and clear. We faced annihilation and prevailed not just through might, but through unity and courage. Let this be a lesson to us all about the power of cooperation and the dangers of unchecked ambition. The crowd erupted in applause, a collective relief and newfound hope filling the air. Humanity was stepping into a new era, one of interstellar capabilities and potential peaceful coexistence with other races. After the ceremony, as Jack walked through the corridors of the United Nations, a young officer approached him. Captain Hartman, your leadership has given us hope. What's next for the Endeavor? Jack smiled, clapping the officer on the shoulder. Next, we continue exploring. There are more mysteries out there in the cosmos, more allies to be made, and more challenges to overcome. Our journey is far from over. As the Endeavor prepared for its next mission, Jack looked back at Earth one last time. He felt a profound connection to everyone who had supported their mission, and a resolve to protect this fragile peace they had achieved. With Lyra by his side and a dedicated crew ready for new adventures, the future was uncertain, but it was filled with possibilities. Let's see what's out there, Jack said, turning to the stars. As the ship's engines ignited, propelling them once more into the unknown, a new chapter in human history began, one full of hope, driven by the lessons of the past, and looking ever forward to the horizon.